Hello, everybody. It's me, Fee, White Zulu, and I want to welcome you to another chapter of, another chapter of Okavango Diary. And I hope you're enjoying these readings. I want to welcome you all. And if you are enjoying them, please share or press the like button or whatever people do if they want to. I'm sorry, I'm a bit Diomaka today. I haven't got any words in front of me to read, so I'm doing this off the cuff. However, this is a greeting to you all and a welcome, and I hope that you enjoy these chapters that I'm reading out. They go out twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, if all goes well. And enjoy them, and thank you so much for listening to them. Share them around. Thank you, and goodbye.
I did the best I could, getting everybody back to their massages safely in the dusk, before racing back to the bar to start getting lemons sliced, glasses polished, and check that there was enough ice from the rickety, temperamental, and ancient ice-making machine, which Fred had fixed so many times now that it was more superglue than machine. It would have cost very little to get a new one, but it appeared to be a challenge for our wealthy bosses to force their staff to try and make do with second-hand parts sourced from my own scrap heaps, rather than buy new equipment for us to use or upgrade it in any way. After all, it wasn't them who had to struggle with the disintegrating equipment, but us people at the coalface. I was dead on my feet now, but instead of being able to settle down at the table along with the guests, as I'd done as manageress, having checked ahead of time that the food was as it should be, delicious and piping hot. Now I had to go around asking each guest whether this was his wine from lunchtime, and pouring drinks for everybody else. I barely had a chance to sit down during the entire meal, as we had a full complement of 16 guests. I couldn't recall whether Mark and Kira had just put the bottles in front of the guests and let them help themselves, and decided I would radio Mark the following day to find out what the protocol was. After a tepid, tasteless soup was served, the main dish arrived. It was a lukewarm, lumpy brown slurry of unidentifiable origin. I couldn't tell whether it was meat or poultry or what. The flour in the gravy hadn't been cooked properly, so it had a gluey consistency and a flavour reminiscent of wallpaper paste. Clearly things were not going too well in the kitchen. The guests were poking suspiciously at this mess, and I was mighty glad that I was not to blame for it. The pudding wasn't that much better. The chocolate mousse hadn't set properly and had to be poured, slopping into the pudding bowls. To make up for this debacle, the guests drank even more, putting more strain on my department of one. After dinner, the guests sat around the fire in the boma while I offered them their choice of coffee. They carried on drinking, and I continued to ferry drinks to them from the bar, which was up some steps from the boma. Finally, they began to make their way back to their massages, escorted by the three of us, and I staggered off to my hut on the outskirts of the camp, had a quick soap and a warm bath, and collapsed into bed. Unlike the pilot's accommodation, which had mosquito netting covering the small window. This one had a mosquito net over the bed, something new for me, and nothing over the windows. The hanging net provided very little protection, as the mosquitoes managed to get in somehow and bit me anyway. So I lit one of those wonderful Chinese dragon green coils, which burn slowly throughout the night, and the smoke of which dispels all mosquitoes. My head was still throbbing painfully. I had palpitations and felt dizzy, even though I was lying down. I ached all over and didn't feel at all well. I woke at about 3 a.m., about 2 hours after having gone to sleep, to hear a commotion. Now that Fred had gone, Oscar, who had come back from his month at Bible camp, had gone straight back to his bad old ways of sleeping in the guest loo and allowing the elephants to roam freely throughout the camp, breaking branches. The manager and his wife were back at Motsa, which was too far removed from the camp itself for them to be able to hear the elephants laying waste. So it was up to me to get up, grab my torch, and go down to rouse Oscar. By now there were 5 elephants in the camp, and Oscar took it upon himself to run over to the manager to ask for reinforcements. They both came over to try and get rid of these beasts. I had discovered a new way of shifting them out. One night I had found an empty 5-gallon cooking oil can discarded behind the kitchen, and when I shook it up and down holding the handle, the bending metal made a strange crackling, hollow noise. This had an electrifying effect on the elephants, who turned and bolted out of the camp, obviously not understanding the new noise. That old adage, or saying that an elephant is afraid of a mouse, is not far from the truth. If they can't see something or don't understand the noise, they will turn and run away. They'd become so used now to the clinking of stones and wine bottles and Oscar beating on his blick that they didn't turn a hair. We'd had to find a new method, and I was carrying my can and shaking it when the couple arrived from Moxa. "Fiona, stop making that bloody noise." The BFH rounded on me and snapped, just as the elephants began to turn and flee. I tried to explain to her that the new noise was most effective, but she ordered me to put the can down and go about chasing them the old way. As they'd already pretty much all gone, I went back to my hut and back to bed, utterly furious with her, and decided that from now on I wouldn't come out and help chase elephants. It was not part of the hostess's job anyway. But with Fred and Ikira, we had made ourselves into a tight and efficient team, and didn't resent helping one another out. I continued sleeping fitfully for a couple more hours, but still feeling extremely ill. There was barely time to get back to sleep when my alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. Making a supreme effort, I dragged myself out of bed, washed, and went down to the office. They were already in there and obviously talking about me, as they both stopped speaking when I came in and turned to glare at me. Then the BFH began berating me. Apparently there was a towel missing, a minuscule miscount on the cakes of soap, and that was just the laundry. The shelves in the dry goods room were dusty, and there was a miscount there as well. A couple of tinned goods didn't tally up to what they should be. I took this all on board without a word. I was quite sure that I would make the odd slip-up both in the laundry and in the kitchen, but overall just a couple of small items going astray over a month wouldn't break the bank if one compared it to the 100% customer satisfaction feedback we had received for service, quality of food, and general hospitality. And I was fully expecting to be berated by her, as had every other relief manageress who had passed through Xugana, including Fred and his wife. He had warned me that she did it with everybody, and also any relief staff that slept at Moxa would be accused of snooping through and stealing her stuff, including Fred himself. I also suspected that our bosses had not been able to find a single willing staff member to come up and do the hostess job. Nikki had left and gone home rather than come back and resume being a hostess at Xugana, and not one other single girl in the office, nor any young men like Mark either, despite all the perks of working in the bush, were prepared to come up and work with the BFH. I'd been suckered in, not actually aware that I was their last and only choice. Breakfast was a repeat of the first morning. I had woken up at Xugana. The toast wasn't ready, and Leah had dissolved into tears at the first sight of her old mistress, causing her to cease to function again, after having shown great promise in the kitchen, where I'd put her under Kutzi's wing to teach her the ropes of becoming a sous chef. Now she couldn't even make toast, and was sniffling and hiccuping between sobs. She looked pleadingly at me, but there was nothing I could do. It was no longer my domain, and I had to smile encouragingly at her and walk past to unlock the gift shop, feeling a deep and guilty sense of having betrayed her. I felt as though I'd been hit by a train and could scarcely put one foot in front of the other. My whole body was aching, my head was still throbbing, and my eyes were so sore from lack of sleep that it looked as though I was suffering from conjunctivitis. I still had the whole day to get through, try and unravel some of the mistakes of last night's mix-ups with the wine, find the missing torches and batteries, or order more, as I suspected that they might have gone walkabout to the staff village, where torches were at a premium. There was a new couple arriving on the 11 o'clock boat, and after struggling with the heavy crates of beer and many bottles of wine restocking the fridge, I went down to meet them at the jetty. They appeared to have an enormous amount of luggage for 2 people, and I wondered how they'd managed to get the pilot to bring it all up. Normally, if people, guests and staff alike, exceed the weight limit, the pilot refuses to take those bags and would leave them lying on the tarmac for head office to send a vehicle to collect them. The guide, Jonathan, who had brought them in the boat, had vanished, leaving me to take the new guests to their masasa. I looked around, but the place was deserted, so it was I who collected up all the bags, ending up looking like a pack horse as I struggled with the heavy load, while the 2 guests strolled nonchalantly ahead, empty-handed, along the path to their accommodation. On the way there, I tripped over a tree root which was jutting out, and fell to the ground under the weight of all these bags. Luckily, the soil I landed on was soft, but I wrenched my shoulder quite badly as I scrambled back to my feet, still carrying my load. I gave them their orientation and told them where to find the bar where they could get a cup of coffee or drink. I then had to go back to my hut and wash the soil off my knees and elbows and change my shorts, as they were also covered in black soil. I looked longingly at my bed, knowing that it would be a long time before I got back there. No, I had to race down to the bar so as to get there before the guests did and start pouring drinks. I then had to rush down to the jetty to greet other guests coming back from their excursion at lunchtime, open up the gift shop, and simultaneously be in the bar to begin serving drinks to the thirsty throng that had gathered there. I really don't know how Kira and Mark managed this job. Until much later I found a sign which I could hang up stating the times that the shop would be open. That's enough.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to my videos and my stories of my life. And I want to thank John Moslane for being what I call the sound engineer, but I'm sure there's a more professional word for it. However, faithful, and for 4 years now, I think, he has been here for me every Wednesday. Well, I think it's Wednesdays, but once a week to record 2 chapters of whichever book it is I'm reading. And without him, this couldn't be done. So a big thank you to John. Also, Sean van Vuren, we send the videos to him. Sorry, I'm not reading this. I'm just doing it off the cuff. And my brain is a bit tumor. And Sean uploads them to the YouTube channel where you can find them all in playlists. He does it beautifully. And I want to thank them both for all the help that they give me. Well, it's not help. They do everything for me. And it's a great asset. So also, I have a website called whitezulubook.com, obviously www in front of it, but you'll find it there. Quite easy to find. Johnny Clegg's called The White Zulu. Mine's called White Zulu. And you will find on my website, you'll find all kinds of photographs going way back to when my ancestors settled in the Cape, 1652. Well, not photographs of them, but descriptions. This photograph of my grandmother's wedding, and lovely, lovely photos of the farm we still own. My sister sent me a photograph this morning of the farm in midsummer, and she says how beautiful it's looking. I've had a lot of rain. So, just want to thank my helpers, John and Sean, to thank you all for listening, and also please share this with everybody else. Hit the like button and enjoy. Goodbye.